Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fallout Roundtable. This is a place where diverse individuals discuss various topics from the Fallout universe. Join us, the conversation has already started.
Welcome, one and all to this very special episode of the Fallout Roundtable. I am the one, the only, the Maverick Stone. Today I think we have everyone here.
We do have everyone here.
We have Jaxis, Gingerino, Sassy Lady, and Romer. Everybody say hello.
No, Gingerino.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And then we have our guest, who is...
Our very special guest.
Our very special guest host today. He gets upgraded. Ooh.
Woo.
Good morning, Wastelanders.
That was great.
Gingerino
Is
looks
that
like
Norvul?
he's laying down.
That was a great intro.
I've been wanting to use that for like a while now.
That was really good.
So anyway, before we get started, before we hand it off to Norvul to our topic, which we'd have no idea about.
Right.
Surprise.
The topic we're discussing today is what is the world of Fallout, or rather what it's like outside of the United States.
But before we get into that, how about you take the time to rate, review, and subscribe to our wackiness on our YouTube channel. You can see me at the Fallout Roundtable, and if you want to go on our Spotify, rate us five stars also there. We also have a Twitter at Fallout RTB. We also have an email that we would love to hear from you under falloutrtb@gmail.com. Let's move it on to Norvul.
Right. But yeah, anyway,
In his defense,
Fallout,
I didn't know what it was.
Fallout in
Yeah,
other
y'all
countries. I think like a easy, like low-hanging fruit would be sort of Russia / the USSR, along with the rest of Eastern Europe, provided sort of follows our own timeline, considering the Iron Curtain, Cold War, and all. But aesthetic-wise, I think it would be very much like in the 60s original timeline, Soviet style, like with some of the vehicles in notably the planes, they have sort of a cosmic look to them. Like if you like Google Soviet aircraft 1960s, like you'll see some examples of what I'm talking about.
So let's discuss. So what you're saying is, because we know our timeline, what happened in, post World War II with Russia and how the Iron Curtain and the Cold War and all that rolled out.
It got really cold really fast.
Sure.
Is that what they're teaching you these days?
Are we saying?
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh boy.
But are we saying that in the Divergent timeline, is that what happened in Fallout's timeline with Russia? Did they also, or because, we know that China was the superpower.
Yeah, and they were like the Americans' main rival.
Right. So what do we feel like happened with Russia in the Fallout timeline?
As far as I remember, like relations were much more amicable, and like even in like Fallout 1 and 2, like there were AK guns in America, specifically like California.
But I feel AK guns were brought in by the Chinese anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Chinese have their own, but like
Well, if you're talking about the AK-47, is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
Type
yes, we are.
guns,
Okay, so the
I'm talking about like the AK-112 from like Fallout 1. It's also the assault rifle in that game.
Okay, so the AK, I'm assuming it's also in regards to. Let me get back here. Here, I'm sorry, I was shoveling food down my throat real quick, and I didn't think anybody wanted to see that. No, I don't want to see that. Anyway, I thought you were referring to like the AK-47. You got to remember that particular firearm has been made by multiple different venues. Like the Russians have their own version of it. It's called the SKS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that uses the same caliber.
Yeah, it's actually the exact same gun. And the only real differences that you'll find is in the the SKS will have a folding stock and it'll be not wood, the way that you see the AK-47 that was used in Vietnam and things like that. So
Yeah. Plus, I do see the AK existing in Fallout, considering it was made in the late 40s,
yeah, I could see that.
along
I
with
don't
some
know.
of its derivatives.
Anyway, so what you were getting at was that how does the firearm play a role here, though?
It kind of implies that the relationship between Russia and the US, because like if you look at back then, like with in our timeline with like the movie Red Dawn, the original one, like they had to use Finnish RK-62 rifles as props in place of actual AKs, considering that they couldn't import actual AKs at the time.
Right, that was in the 80s. I got you. That was Cold War era. At the same time, now if I remember right, per lore,
You beat
Uh,
me too. I was
the
going to
Russians
say
were
that.
kind of suffering from a massive fuel shortage, and that really affected their economy, and they crashed. Did they not? If
I think they
remember.
did. Yes, yes. I do think that that's what actually happened before the Great War happened. If we're talking about that,
Well, I know that was one of the causes for the Great War was the fuel shortages. That's why we annexed Alaska and things like that, and
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
had the war with
no,
China.
we annexed Canada.
Yeah, for like ease of access
Right.
to
Right.
Because it was
Alaska.
just easier than trying to go through Canada to get
Oh,
to
right, yeah.
Alaska
As for
and
We already had
Mexico, I
protect
think
it.
it would be for like the oil, I guess.
Yeah, I think that we just did. We just decided we would use, the whole continent was just going to be ours, and we would
Well,
just
it's-
take
it-
off
We
the
want to be
resources.
It
bigger.
should
so-
be.
Exactly.
Well, they all want
We
to be
wanna be
here
number
anyway.
one.
So, I mean, ask Ginger. He wants to be an American. So,
Let's be
he
honest
is
here.
raising his hand.
Does he really
No,
want
I
to
think
though?
he's actually petting his
Oh, he was rubbing his face,
yeah.
his green face.
Fox
Yeah, see,
likes
he
the
wants to
pets.
be an American, so it was just easier to just annex
I
that because they all
wanna
wanted to be
an
here.
American.
That's
something,
right.
something. I don't know the song.
Go.
Hey, a question. So for this conversation about nations outside of America, does Canada count? Because I know that was annexed.
No,
No.
That's
But-
what we.
no, you're American in Fallout times.
Yeah, but at the
You're an
same
American.
time, it's like it's
Or
right-
or you're a Canadian revolutionist that don't like us.
This is something I was curious about. So we're talking about the Fallout universe and countries outside of the United States, and I'm assuming how they reacted or how things ended up there. Because did everybody get bombed?
no, the rest of the world's actually fine. It's
Yeah,
just
that's what I
America.
always
Yeah,
wondered. That was kind of
it-
my thing. Was like, what?
Pretty sure
Everybody
that would
just
be
agreed.
the case for every country south of the equator, like Australia. and
Every
South
other
America.
nation just said, "Don't tell them. Don't
We
anyone tell
knew-
them
okay,
that we're
so
a
we
Just
know
pretend
that
that
we
don't
knew.
exist.
Just pretend they're not there."
For
We know
hundreds
we
of
knew
years.
that we were being attacked, right? We know we knew. So that means I'm sure we did our retaliation attacks.
Of course
which
we did.
means that
Of
yes,
course we did.
course
we had
we had-
subs everywhere.
trained on, of course, our big enemy China. So we would have nuked China. So we know that China was probably in the same state as us. But what about Europe? Because at the time the European nation had fallen apart so much, did they even matter anymore?
The EU
Yeah.
fell when
Right.
before,
And well,
and
after
then
they'd
NATO
already
fell after.
So would we have bothered to nuke them? Would we have nukes trained on them? Because
Well, no, because they were
they
like
wouldn't have been a superpower
fighting
anymore.
each other over resources. So
Mm.
Yeah,
and they
the
destroyed each
the
other.
European
Part they were
nations were
considered
just
allies.
fighting each other at this point.
Well, they destroyed each other, right? Like there was
Yeah,
not a
basically
lot
that's
left.
what happened.
Yeah, so probably China nuked us, we nuked China, or that ended
Or
up happening because
Voltec
of whoever
nuked
forced
us.
it. Right.
Yeah, that's I don't know why you keep saying Voltec started.
It was
all.
aliens.
Yeah,
It was
Voltec.
aliens.
Aliens started it all.
Aliens did it. But the end result
No,
was we
aliens are
nuked China, they
propaganda.
nuked us.
Minority.
There's no real aliens. It's all
The
propaganda.
Voltec aliens.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all Voltec.
aliens
You
at
gotta say that
Voltec.
to the mothership Zeta
Voltec
DLC.
created the aliens.
It was the aliens at Voltec.
No, Voltec created the aliens.
Yeah,
They're
it's
just people in costumes.
So would that mean, and thinking, so with Russia, because you started talking about Russia, I might not remember my lore very well from Fallout, but isn't Russia one that devolved with either the resource wars in the EU, or didn't China go after Russia for their resources or something like that?
I'm looking at the wiki right now, and it doesn't really say a lot other than like China was deemed a greater threat to U.S. interests, and
Right. And I don't remember a whole lot about Russia.
yeah, there's
From lore and stuff.
there's
I
not a
mean, if
lot of
anyone was going to be fine,
information.
it would be Russia.
Yeah.
Like they're still
Fine,
communists
yeah.
in Fallout, so
Well, they never talk about it.
The
You know.
communists?
Probably because the fact that
No,
they
not the
were
communists. But it
they
says
were fighting amongst themselves because of the lack of resources.
Yeah,
so it'd be
like
kind of
the-
hard for them to really, mount a war when, they're struggling to just take care of themselves.
well then
So-
there's also the Sino-Soviet split that occurred in our timeline.
the Russian Soviet Republic also had some sort of human mutation experiment program for creating super warriors.
So
But
they had their own
They were
FPV.
creating what we
That's-
were.
it doesn't talk about anything after. It's just that Pam was aware that they were doing things.
that Pam.
Yeah. Well,
Not,
Pam is
not
the one
our
who was
Pam and Far.
Pam in Fallout 4 that was
Pam from The Office, for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
yeah, Pam from The Office. The one that would predict the likelihood of
Yeah, and
Of all the
an
wars and
analysis
stuff like that.
machine.
right. Yeah, I couldn't remember what her an acronym stood for.
Yeah, I forgot what the P stood for.
No, I mean Soviet Union is only one country. I mean, there's thousands. I mean, what
Mhm.
about Africa? Did they bomb Africa? Why would they bomb Africa? I mean, did Africa
Yeah,
become a
like,
superpower?
Who knows
No.
what happened to Africa? Like, for all we know, it could still be alive in some parts, like South
Well, what about the Middle
Africa.
East? Where
Or,
all the
like-
fuel came from?
or
Who are all the
whichever
terrorists,
just got
right? So
fought
Middle
over for
East.
resources.
Yeah,
Well,
because that is our resources.
Yeah, I mean,
But
like
we
a
ran
good
out,
percentage
right?
of uranium comes
Which
from
is-
the Congo, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
there it
I
is.
think
So
all
they
the
were-
stuff in the Middle East ran out.
Yeah, because we ran
Yeah.
out of oil.
That's why the resource wars began, because
Okay,
yeah,
so it
so the
says
Middle East is probably
the
destroyed.
Middle East
that
was
point.
the beginning of the long drawn out conflict between European Commonwealth and the Middle East. The resource wars in December of 2053, Tel Aviv was wiped out by a terrorist nuclear weapon. And in January 2054, a limited nuclear exchange in the Middle East raised fears throughout the world. And this is from the Fallout Wiki fandom.com.
So we're leading up to 2077.
So that was the beginning. Yeah, in 2052, that was the beginning of the resource wars with Europe and the Middle East, because they were looking for the economics collapse from the high prices of fossil fuels. The nations of Europe, dependent on oil imports, decided to take military action.
of course we did, because we won our oil.
Well, that's the Europeans. It doesn't say the Americans did, because
Yeah,
I think we went the
well-
different direction of going and annexing Canada and using what we had in Alaska.
Represent.
Yeah, because y'all had
Yeah.
good stuff, I guess.
Well, I mean, you think about it. The United States is sitting on a treasure trove of oil that we don't touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the
Right.
Gulf
Yeah,
of Mexico,
Texas
if you
is-
think about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So that would have made sense to also annex Mexico.
We have
for the
enough
same
oil
resources.
underneath
Yeah.
us in reality that we could actually just separate ourselves from anybody else. And we don't,
Mhm.
because we don't want the, fallout.
So Africa.
We just
and
need to
South
find
America.
it. We don't know where it is.
Yeah.
That's a funny joke.
Also,
there.
I can imagine like Central America, the Amazon, and the Yucatan being just complete no man's lands because of like the post Great War radioactive effects on the wildlife. Like,
Mhm.
think
Well, I'd
Australia
agree
and
with
Florida
that, yeah.
and just multiply it by 11.
Well, it's like, what about Italy? What about Spain?
They didn't exist.
Yeah.
Germany, Hungary.
They didn't exist
Germany
though,
was-
because all of that just dissembled into one European nation or something. It wasn't like all the countries were gone. I thought
Uh,
they just became Europe.
No,
weren't.
I think They're still
The European Commonwealth is much
Sounds like
our
more research.
original
Was it?
timeline European Union, but it's more of a alliance rather than a singular country like the United
I was thinking
States.
that they didn't like run themselves. So if it's more like the United States, it's like they weren't their own countries. It was like
yeah, it
one
states here in the
country.
wiki.
They were
Yeah,
like
like
a
states.
UN.
World Star for Resources. So I was looking at like Africa, and it says that Africa had a vast mineral wealth that's barely tapped at the present, and even in this state, the continent remains a major player in the global market. In terms of oil, it shows that Africa is part of the lore already, as Egypt is part of the Middle East, produces at the latest numbers around 9,600,000 barrels per day. This person is saying that the Fallout intro mentions that we needed crude oil and uranium and that they were vital resources. There are many more resources than that vital to humanity. That they talk about phosphorus, coal, rare earth minerals, all of which were estimated 5 years ago to start running out or to run out in the latter half of the 21st century, just as the resource wars kicked into high gear in Fallout. So, I mean, and that's what's interesting is when did Fallout become a thing? 90s? When
the
all
game
the
itself originally came out in
when
the
the lore
90s,
started
yeah.
being written for it and stuff like that.
I believe that
and
would be the beginning of the
These
90s.
things were actually happening.
Well, the Cold War part of it, yeah.
No,
Anyway, folks,
the fact that we're running out of resources and that people are saying that, yes, we're going to run out of these resources like mid-century, this
Yeah, it was
century, which is
it was-
when they ran out in their
there was a
lore.
lot of reality to it.
There's
Folks,
a
we're
lot
going to
of
go ahead and
reality.
take a quick break. We're going to come back, and when we do, we're going to kind of dig a little deeper into this subject and maybe see what other countries we can come up with as a possible, who knows what happened. All right, we'll be right back. Ever wanted to be a content creator but had no clue where to begin? Come join me as I sit down with content creators that have already faced the challenges you're up against, as they discuss the tips and tricks that help them be successful. Here on The Content Creator's Guide, available wherever podcasts can be found. Hello, folks. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our little episode thing or commercial there. I don't even know what to call it. Anyway, all right. So where are we at there, Norvul? Norvul.
We're gonna be discussing like what was the world after the Great War occurred, where everybody got nuked. Apparently,
Romer, what's your opinion? I haven't heard anything from you.
My opinion is I really hope that due to the nuclear fallout that the people of New Zealand actually were mutated into hobbits. So
would be good.
if that were to happen, I'd be happy. So
All right, cool.
I like it.
What if they were little tiny little super mutants?
oh my god.
that way we have orcs.
They would
I-
be
all
like
I-
mini orcs, though.
All I can see is like miniature, super mutants running around. That
Wouldn't that be a
would
troll?
actually be just as awesome.
I don't know what it would be. I guess whatever you call it.
They'd be able to fit under a bridge.
And then they can charge
The
a toll.
continuous war between the hobbits and the orcs.
Anyway,
Sorry,
All right.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's get back on track.
Hey, Gingerino, you got an opinion or something?
I mean, I'm all for the Hobbits thing for sure.
I
For
figured you would
sure.
be.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like other nations and stuff like that,
Wow.
the only thing I wonder is, okay, like where in the world do you think
Carmen San
probably
Diego.
there's probably nowhere in the world that
Same
wasn't
thing.
affected, I
I know,
imagine.
I was too.
Is there anywhere in the world that would like relatively stay the same or survive because they weren't targeted or hit? That might be the cradle
Easter
of
Island.
Yeah,
That
Easter
they would
Island was
not hit.
oddly enough what I thought.
Hawaii.
See, and I think depending on how
Maybe.
things go. So it all depends. How often do they update the nuclear program? Because I'm sure that once they put all those missiles out there and they have them targeted at certain countries, how easy is it to go around and change the targets? So I'm sure we've got a nuke targeted on every country and anywhere, whatever. In
Screw
several
you, Guam.
on big countries, right? And
Die.
I mean, that's just
Actually, don't die.
how
You're
I get
allies.
it, but just in case. But then, like the people who don't have a nuclear program, the countries that are like not able to, or neutral or whatever, do we have something trained on them, and why would we? Or if they don't become, like, if they lose status as a country or become friendly, do we move our nukes? Do we untarget them and reprogram the target? How does that work? Does that work? Or is it like, yeah, we've got like 10 nukes, centered on your capital, but don't worry about it. We won't use them.
Unless we have to, and then we will.
Just don't piss us off. I don't know how that works.
Just don't do that.
Does anybody know the answer to that? If you know the answer, let us know, because I would be interested to know that. I don't.
I would love to know
how that works.
What they do too.
Could you imagine them nuking Australia? A place
Right?
that's
What did they
already
do?
it's
I mean,
a
like,
place
I
that's
can already
already
see that
dangerous
because
right now as it is,
targets.
I
and
think it
then
would just become
mutating
really
everything
shiny.
down there. It just
Because
be
like the
even
U.S.
worse.
could have placed like missile sites there along with air bases. So like, wouldn't say
I think there are air bases.
Yeah,
I'm sure we've got them everywhere, but I'm just saying, like, why would we nuke Australia? Like, why would we have nukes sent there to blow them up?
Oh, I
Because
was thinking of like the
kangaroos.
Chinese sending nukes there.
Because Voltec's evil.
Well,
Wanna
the
get rid of
Chinese might.
Evil
but
Vault Tech.
Want to get
even
rid of the
then,
evil
like,
kangaroos.
who does Australia fight? Do they fight people? Who do they fight? But it's like Canada. You don't hear about Canada going out and just like, oh, we're gonna go.
No,
make
the
war with-
Canadians were actually a major part of World War II.
I know.
Yes, they were.
Yeah,
But that was
And the
because-
Australians, for that matter.
But you don't see them fighting everything, since then. Really, I don't think.
Well, unless you're a trucker.
Maybe they just got really good at, I don't know, foreign relations.
Yeah, probably because they're really good at saying sorry. We already established that.
Sorry.
runs you over with the tank. Sorry about that.
And nobody here's
Well, think about it this way. I mean, Vault-Tec, they do crazy, stupid things in the vault. So why wouldn't they nuke Australia? It's like,
it
let's
was
see
a
what we can
social
make.
experiment, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Just a social experiment. Do they mention Australia?
So, social experiments. What was the whole Gary Vault about?
I think it was about
cloning.
Cloning.
How's cloning social experiment?
See if you could live with yourself.
I mean, Vault 111 did have cryo chambers, so
Gary.
I doubt it was just on a social level.
Yeah, but also Gary was here in the U.S. Unless they did what did they did a Gary experiment on, like, say, one of the islands or something, like Hawaii?
That'd be kind of scary.
Because it'd be just nothing but Gary's, a whole island of them.
Oh, now that would be a nice spin-off for like a survival horror game.
Hi, I'm Gary. Hey, Gary, how you doing, Gary? Yeah, I'm all right, Gary.
Hey,
Like New
Gary.
Zealand. Why would you nuke New Zealand?
Non-Gary detected.
Terrible. Yeah,
Revenge
most of
on all
them
the
were.
Vikings. Ragnarok, this buddy.
I think that there would be some countries that wouldn't have been hit, and
Yeah,
but considering
Zimbabwe?
that most of these countries are probably dependent on the big ones for imports or exports, they're probably going to fall apart
yeah, they would have
Rio
a
de Janeiro is
its
significant
own country.
impact.
because they're
No.
unable to trade and they're basically left.
Rio de
to-
Janeiro is a city in
It's
Brazil.
a city. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to cut
So-
all you in there, but I knew it right off the bat.
So these countries, they would end up being like basically, I guess, like a third world country where they can't get resources that they need, maybe, and they're just dependent upon themselves, and maybe they do okay and maybe they don't because they can't get everything they need. I don't know.
So, what would Japan look like?
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
interesting. That is
Is there an
interesting.
It is
island?
interesting because there is an article in the Fallout Wiki regarding Japan.
Because I feel like Japan is a superpower, but since they're not as overt and they're not communists like China, you don't hear about them.
No, you don't.
I don't know. Part of me
We
thinks
think.
China
think.
probably would have like scooped him up. I'm
Oh.
just kind of guessing.
There is mentions of the Yakuza, or at least their descendants, And like what New Reno?
We do know that the first two nuclear bombs were dropped on Hiroshima,
Yeah,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That still happened.
yeah,
That's
that
true.
did happen.
Yeah.
That still happened in the fallout because right there, that's when. Wow, I hit my mic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there wouldn't be a Fallout without that.
Yeah. So our timeline and Fallout timeline split at when that happened, pretty much.
And we do have remember the robot in Diamond City? Doesn't he speak Japanese?
Yeah,
yeah,
Power Navy guy?
yeah, the
Yeah,
cook.
yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm.
The samurai does.
And then there's a lot
Samurai
of
power
Japanese
armor.
lore
That'd be
in
cool.
New Vegas.
That'd be pretty cool.
So it pops up, and it pops up, but you don't know like about the country. But so I'm thinking probably the way the timeline diverges, maybe they never recover from World War II and they never bounce back. You know, after we destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, maybe they just don't really bounce back from that very well. Or maybe
Or
it
they could-
changes their whole trajectory of how they approach.
Maybe they become more advanced than we give them credit for, and so during when the Fallout series takes place, maybe they are way beyond advanced than what we're dealing with in the United
Their
States.
Vault Tech.
Vault Tech parent company.
And yeah, their Vault Tech,
Vault-Tec
instead of trying to
started
screw them over,
by the
work
the
together.
Japanese.
Yes.
Japan.
That
Their
would be
Vault
the
Tech's handing
ultimate
out
revenge,
baskets.
right? That'd be ultimate revenge for.
Well,
pretty good.
who? Fallout 5 is the new Japanese Imperial Army marches to California and starts going across the country.
Oh,
Ooh. Sorry. Little
Now-
fanfic here on the side. No, I'm just kidding.
We already know that Europe pretty much destroyed itself in the resource wars with the Middle East. So
yeah.
was there a purpose in nuking them during the Great War, since
Probably
they were kind
not.
of already crippled? So in the case of but that'll be interesting because then we have that mod Fallout London coming.
Yeah.
So will they have been nuked, or are they just going to be war torn, or kind of just old and decrepit? I bet they're going to be nuked. Why not?
I'd
we
say
had.
like both war torn and nuked.
I'm thinking somebody had nukes trained on,
Because like
Great Britain before everything went to crap. Anyway,
yeah, because
so
Britain and
they
France
just
in our
stay.
timeline had their own nukes.
Right. And like I said, I don't know. Can you just like go in there and hit a computer program and go change target? Can you? Maybe.
I mean, like before launching them, yeah, but in flight, I have no idea. Probably
But like,
not.
why? It's probably one of those just in case kind of things. Like, let's just nuke them just in case.
Nuke the site from orbit, just on the way to be sure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, even if they were in kind of rough shape prior to our nuclear devastation or whatever, whoever set the bombs off probably just said, why not just take out them too, even if they weren't really a threat. But it's still interesting, that whole question of who nuked who, because what was the end game? Like, what was going to be gained from all this?
And it's never easy to tell exactly what those gains are going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody was impatient, wanted to get the experiments to start
unless
sooner.
somebody's sitting on an island
Yeah.
somewhere, it's like, aha, we're living
Yeah.
in paradise and y'all are smoldering.
You're going to die, sucker.
I wouldn't want to risk the radiation in the air. That just sucks. But
Yeah,
each their own.
Oh, well.
unless you want to like an excuse to constantly wear a gas mask, like it's Metro or something.
They had plenty of rat away, so
Yeah, don't forget the right away.
So who do you think got nuked worse? Us or China? Like who took the brunt?
That's hard to say because you don't hear
Yeah.
anything from China after the fact. So it's very
Yeah, and-
possible China just gone.
And they
Right,
only
well,
mentioned
Speculating,
Yeah.
knowing that, I mean, are they what size wise compared to the US? I don't even know. I know they're big,
like
but same
I can only
size?
imagine it being like on the coast and as well as any major cities like Chicago. And like we do know that that Las Vegas was semi spared from the nuking because it did have
Because of
like
Mr.
laser
House.
defense.
Right.
Like that's just it.
But I'm thinking if
Now I can imagine
comparatively, if we had as many nukes targeted at them as they had targeted us, would that annihilate them more so than it did us because they're more densely? I don't know.
I just remembered like the Gobi campaign scout rifle from Fallout New Vegas, like that one does imply the existence of like US forces invading China. So I could imagine like there being tactical nukes used by either US or China on
They are bigger
in
us.
mainland China.
We
So
do
China
know
is
that
bigger.
that the us Americans did invade the Chinese homeland,
Yeah.
but it was after the Anchorage offensive.
Yeah.
It was
Mhm.
sort of like the counterattack, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because they talk about it in different areas, right?
Yes, and you hear about it in the simulation when you do the Anchorage, Alaska thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If I remember correct, if I mistaken anything, please someone correct me before I make a fool out of myself.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
want to be
just
wrong.
Maybe
We're
just correct
speculating.
all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's only so much information we could go off of like anything outside of just the mainland United States.
Yeah, because honestly, we really don't know.
Yeah. We have so much lore that we've been given.
Yeah, even by Bethesda in like any content.
Yeah. And we're trying to kind of piece together more.
Mm-hmm. But Bethesda always likes to keep their lore ambiguous so they can change stuff on the fly, like they do a lot in 76.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to see stuff like retcon because
But
they
you know, it
wanna-
has happened though,
Yeah, yeah.
like with the pit. But we don't talk about the pit. The pit is not that.
So
It was the pits. If you want to go back to the episode, we talked about how bad it was.
so what else what else do we think about how the world outside of the United States looked post-war?
Yeah.
Just basically like
There
we do or different?
well there is like a mention of in the Fallout 3 official game guide, there's a man by the name of Michael Masters who did some experiments that were inspired by some human experiments done by done in Germany, Russia, and China. So there is a plausibility of there being ghouls and super mutants in Russia, Europe, or China, or all three.
Well, there was an illusion that Russia was working on their own superhuman
Their own
Yeah.
FEV type virus, yes.
Oh, they didn't mention FEV, but they just mentioned superhuman. They could do that.
Yeah.
I'm saying FEV type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't say it was FEV specifically. It was an FEV
but like a
type of
similar,
virus.
yeah,
Yeah,
something
Yeah,
just
similar.
same
kind of
goals in
like
mind.
Captain America. When Captain America and
Mhm.
Dr. Erskine created the formula after he was killed. Everyone tried to create, and that's how the Hulk became a thing. Because they were trying to see if gamma radiation was the key, and it wasn't, or it used too much or whatever. And that's how
we
the
need to
Hulk
save
became
that
a
for
thing.
the Marvel Roundtable.
We haven't
I'm
started
sorry,
that one yet.
I
It's
just got
bleeding in.
done watching the brand new episode of Secret Invasion.
Hmm.
All right,
But
guys.
back on topic, guys. Back to
So
topic.
yeah, so if there was a case of they were doing things like that and then their little experiments got out, so then you probably would have super mutant type creatures wandering around in Russia as well.
I wonder
or
what they would
something.
look like though. Would they
Whatever's
be
akin.
green?
I don't know, because if
Maybe
they
they'll
weren't
be
using
yellow.
FEV,
I think
just
they'd be
would be
white,
different.
to be honest.
white.
White to match all the snow and stuff.
I don't
So
know.
Because
they were,
if
they
you-
were going one step further, they wanted camo super soldiers.
It could happen. You never know.
I mean,
Because
like,
you
they could
notice
have
our
worked
super
to-
mutants were green.
They
Grass
might have
is
thought ahead.
green.
Okay, that's true. All of our camo is that green color. So yeah, that makes sense.
How much you want to bet that Russia they would have Yetis?
Yes.
Yeti
That'd be
super
scary.
mutants.
Yes. There you go.
This thing
Now
would
you
just
know.
beat us to death.
Russia is full
Yup.
of Yetis post-war. We have settled it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
There you
I
go.
think that's gonna pretty much do it for us tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, if you got any suggestions on show ideas or anything like that, please send them to us. Or if you got a comment about this particular show we had, please send us that. And everybody say goodnight.
Goodbye.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night.
This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.